You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now. "14 days until Election Day, and already a large number of Americans have voted. What we're learning about who's voting early and what that means for the early election lead.
And now they've been exposed to these waterborne pathogens.
What is in the water? Officials raising alarm over the deadly bacteria now lurking in the floodwaters in hurricane-battered Florida. What we know about the number of cases and what residents are being asked not to do. Then Listeria recall expanded. The popular breakfast food officials are asking you to stay away from in the race to limit the effects of a serious foodborne illness. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Exactly 2 weeks from today, millions of Americans heading to the polls in a historic election. And the candidates are making their final push towards the finish line. Former President Donald Trump continuing to campaign in North Carolina today, visiting Greensboro, where he's speaking about the economy with a promise to bring back jobs if he's elected president. Before that, he was in Miami at a Latino Summit roundtable where he spoke of his hope to flip a normally blue key voting demographic red.
I just saw a poll that we're actually leading with Hispanics. That's never happened before. And I don't know, but it's going to be close.
Vice President Kamala Harris didn't make any campaign stops today, but she will appear on NBC Nightly News tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern for an exclusive interview with NBC News anchor Hallie Jackson. While Governor Tim Walz, he did hit the trail in Madison, Wisconsin with a Democratic fan favorite.
Are you fired up?
Former President Obama looking to energize Democrats in Wisconsin, a must-win state where the latest polls show both Harris and Trump neck and neck in a very, very close race. That said, Kamala Harris does hold a marginal lead over Donald Trump nationwide in a new Reuters Ipsos poll. Harris is ahead 46 to 43%, which is within the margin of error and mostly unchanged from polling a week ago. She wins on abortion and health care. Trump leads Harris on the economy by 8 points and by 13 points on immigration. The question is whether Harris can claw back some of Trump's gains when it comes to border security. The National News Desk's Christine Frizzau takes a deeper look into what the candidates are proposing in the hopes of winning over crucial votes.
Former President Donald Trump holding what he calls a Latino summit for Latino business leaders in Miami, who cited the trafficking of child migrants and their faith as key factors in supporting him.
Today, Lord, we lift up the man that we believe you've put your hand upon to help restore America.
Trump also taking part in a Univision town hall last week, trying to reach members of a group polls show have shifted in part to him, despite threats like sending members of the military to help patrol the border.
We have to go back to 1798 to target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil.
A second Trump term expected to see a resurrection of policies from his first, like Remain in Mexico and restarting construction of the border wall, plus a new program he's touted repeatedly on the campaign trail.
Immediately upon taking the oath of office, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
Donald Trump has criticized the Biden-Harris administration, which oversaw a record number of illegal crossings, blaming Harris in particular for inaction. Harris has endorsed the bipartisan border bill, which would continue some more restrictive asylum policies, add 1,500 Customs and Border Protection personnel, and 100 new immigration judges. She has slammed Trump repeatedly for his role in blocking the bill from being passed.
He picked up the phone and called some friends in Congress and said, stop the bill. Because, you see, he prefers to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And the American people deserve a president who cares more about border security than playing political games and their personal political future.
Harris also supports protecting those brought to the U.S. as children, known as Dreamers, and helping them earn a pathway to citizenship, but has pivoted away from former progressive policies like closing detention facilities and limiting deportations.
We must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
Now, a brand new Reuters Ipsos poll reveals this issue remains top of mind. When asked what the next president should focus on most in the first 100 days, those surveyed ranked immigration as the #1 issue, Amira.
Not totally a surprise. And we do know both candidates have called the immigration system broken. Both have criticized the other for their border policies. But it all really comes down to Congress to fix this, right?
Well, yes and no. Any new laws or long-lasting changes would need to be enacted by Congress. But, you know, a lot of those policies from Trump's first term were carried out through executive order. And ever since President Joe Biden's asylum policies in his executive order, the number of encounters of migrants between ports of entry has dropped dramatically, about 55%.
We'll see how that works itself out for the election in just 2 weeks. Live from Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzell, thank you for that report. Much of the country today, from the southwest to the northeast, experiencing warmer than usual fall temperatures with temps into the low 80s. Multiple states could reach record daily highs for their areas. Northwest New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and parts of West and North Texas all flirting with possible new highs today. The warm weather could last the week. So, of course, if you are in those areas, enjoy it while it lasts. Tonight, a year into a bloodied Mideast war, Secretary Blinken is making his 11th diplomatic attempt to garner a truce deal that would bring an end to the death and devastation that has rocked Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran, and de-escalate tensions in a region dangerously close to an all-out war. Blinken today meeting with Netanyahu and other security officials, where he urged them to, quote, capitalize on the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar by ending the war and bringing the hostages home. This, as the State Department says, it is pressing Israel for more information after Israeli airstrikes leveled several buildings and significantly damaged Lebanon's largest public hospital on the outskirts of southern Beirut. Lebanese health officials say more than a dozen people were killed and more than 50 others were wounded.
Every possible measure needs to be taken to minimize impact on civilians, to minimize civilian casualties. We have asked the Israelis for additional information.
Israel says it struck a Hezbollah target and was not targeting the hospital. And tonight, the FBI says it is investigating an alleged leak of highly classified U.S. intelligence documents days after it was revealed that Israel's potential plans for a retaliatory attack on Iran were published to an Iran-linked Telegram account. The White House says at this point, it's still unclear whether the documents were made public through someone on the inside or if this was the result of an outside hack. According to investigators out of Houston, the Federal Aviation Administration was aware that the lights on a Houston radio tower were out as early as last week on Thursday. FAA guidance says towers higher than 200 feet should be lit, and any outages, quote, should be corrected as soon as possible. The administration sent a notice to pilots on Thursday that this tower was, quote, unserviceable. On Sunday, 4 people, including a child, died when a helicopter giving a tour hit the unlit tower about 600 feet in the air. Florida has been hit by 3 hurricanes this season, and early insurance claims from Debbie paint a pretty bleak picture for those impacted by Helene and Milton. According to a new report by the nonprofit Notus, Florida's top insurer, state-backed Citizens Property Insurance, denied more than 3/4 of claims for Hurricane Debbie, which hit Florida's Big Bend in August. Across all Florida insurers, roughly half of all residential claims related to Debbie were closed without a payment. Most of them are flood claims. Experts expect a similar situation with claims for Helene and Milton. And in another bleak development for those devastated communities, tonight we are learning that an adverse health impact is taking root. Reports of a flesh-eating bacteria lurking in the floodwaters that Florida health officials now say is on the rise. The National News Desk's Katie Benty has a look at the extent of the concern and what Florida residents are being urged not to do.
It's not just about what you can see after a hurricane that's dangerous, but also what you can't see. Ahead of Hurricane Milton, the Florida Department of Health issued this warning, urging residents to steer clear of floodwaters. Vibrio vulnificus is a potentially deadly flesh-eating bacteria that thrives in warm coastal waters, especially after storms.
We have this great climatic event. It pushes water where it shouldn't be, and now the humans are kind of picking up the pieces from the storm. They're in the waters, or heaven forbid they were in the waters during the storm, and now they've been exposed to these waterborne pathogens.
Dr. Norman Beatty specializes in infectious diseases at the University of Florida, and he's currently part of a team investigating Vibrio vulnificus across the state. He warns while this bacteria can be ingested through raw or undercooked shellfish like oysters, it can also infect cuts on the skin, which could result in limb amputations. And about 1 in 5 people die, sometimes within a day or two.
It really triggers the infection of the skin and soft tissue to cause the tissue to die. And it can happen very rapidly. Within hours.
Confirmed cases of Vibrio are climbing in Florida. Before Hurricane Helene, there were just 6 cases. Now following Milton, data shows that number has jumped to 74, with 13 resulting in death.
Just trying to stay protected when we go to assist with hurricane cleanup and recovery, I think is the most important thing that we can do to be prepared for this.
Palm Beach County had 2 fatalities from Vibrio this year, but these were not linked to the hurricanes.
And that was Katie Benty reporting. Tomorrow, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union will vote on whether to accept the new negotiated proposal between union leadership and Boeing or to keep their strike going into its 6th week. Boeing's latest offer includes a 35% wage increase, among other details, but many union members have said the offer still is not good enough.
I'm going to vote no because I'm fully into getting my pension restored.
The rank-and-file union members also rejected a proposed agreement between Boeing and union leadership days before the strike began on September 13th. Coming up, almost 20 million people have already voted in this election cycle. What that means for the upcoming election and which states are already setting voting records. Then a recall on breakfast foods possibly contaminated with listeria growing. Everything you need to know about the brands impacted and illnesses reported. Plus a counterfeit money scheme out of Ohio. How these fake bills are somehow passing the tests but still hurting businesses nationwide. Election Day just 2 weeks away, but more than 19 million Americans have already cast their ballots, with early voting having begun in multiple states. National correspondent Atral Nashar reports on who's voted so far and what it means for the presidential candidates.
For millions of voters, Election Day is already here.
I just wanted to be out here early so I can get my vote in.
Many state and local election officials were expecting high turnout, but not this high. Even in North Carolina, still recovering from Hurricane Helene.
2020 was a record for us on the first day of in-person early voting, and now we've broken that record.
Georgia also shattering turnout records. As of Tuesday afternoon, almost 1.8 million early and absentee ballots had been cast, making up almost 25% of active Georgia voters. By law, the state can't start counting votes until 7 a.m. on Election Day, but we do know more than 55% have been cast by women. In another critical swing state, Pennsylvania, more than 1 million ballots had been cast as of Tuesday afternoon, according to the Associated Press. And as expected, about 2/3 have come from Democrats.
Democrats, I think, always turn out in higher numbers just because they've always been encouraged to do so. They've always been encouraged to come out for early voting, to cast an absentee ballot.
Whereas Republicans in 2020 sowed doubt in the process. After losing the White House, the GOP now encourages all types of voting.
Whether you vote early, absentee, by mail, or in person, we are going to protect the vote.
The Harris and Trump campaigns aren't giving any public reaction yet to early voting data, knowing a lot can change in 2 weeks.
This isn't really an indication of anything right now. It's way too early to make any sort of, judgments about what this means for either candidate. But I do think that, promoting it would help both parties.
The 2020 pandemic-era election was the first in American history where the majority of voters did not cast their ballots in person on Election Day. Since then, many have come to prefer the convenience of voting early, but based on turnout so far, in-person Election Day voting will be the main event. In Washington, I'm Atral Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
All right, Acha, thank you. Your opportunities to get a grand slam at 3 in the morning, well, they are about to shrink dramatically. Denny's has announced that it is closing 150 restaurants in the next year. 50 of those are going to shutter by the end of this year, and that will leave close to 1,400 locations still open. But you should expect some changes because Denny says they're no longer requiring their franchises to stay open 24 hours a day. And the late night food chain plans to cut its menu options by more than half, going from 97 choices to 46. The former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch in court today, facing charges related to sex trafficking. Mike Jeffries, along with 2 other associates, were arrested this morning. The federal indictment alleges that between 2008 and 2015, they recruited men who wanted to become models and gave them drugs, alcohol, and Viagra at sex-themed parties. The U.S. Attorney's Office says this indictment is a message for all casting employers across the country.
To anyone who thinks they can exploit and coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system, this case should serve as a warning. Prepare to trade that couch for a bed in federal prison.
Check your freezers. A massive recall for frozen waffles due to listeria concerns has expanded. After additional testing at the manufacturing facility, Treehouse Foods has added 200 more frozen breakfast foods to its contamination list, including pancakes. The products are under brands like Best Choice and Krusty's, sold at major supermarkets all over, including Aldi, Kroger, Publix, Target, Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Wegmans. They have a best buy date of October 1st, 2024 to October 11th of 2025. Listeria infections can cause both mild and serious problems, including death. Thus far, no illnesses connected to the recall have been confirmed. The Maryland State Department of Health tonight has jump-started a major investigation after dozens of people were hospitalized from alleged food poisoning on Monday afternoon in a suburb of Baltimore. Officials say a hospital went on a disaster alert after 46 people became sick from eating what officials say was the same meal at a wholesale seafood distributor. All of the patients were taken to Howard County General Hospital in non-critical condition. Investigators are now working to determine what they ate and whether it may have been contaminated. Excess stress has a lot of unwanted impacts on our body, and how your face looks is one of them. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains how the two are connected.
Hey there, everybody. Hello to you. If you are feeling stressed out, there is a hormone in your body that appears to respond to that stress. It can influence not just your health, but doctors also say your physical appearance. An appearance on social media referred to as cortisol face.
Cortisol is basically a stress hormone, so there are a number of things that can cause cortisol face. You might hear it described as cushingoid.
Facial plastic surgeon Dr. John Mendelson of Ohio's Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center says the cushingoid response, as it's sometimes called, is a medical term for a facial appearance caused by Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome is a disorder where excess cortisol production causes fat redistribution to the face and sometimes the body.
You can see it to your midsection, but you can see it to your face, and it also traps some fluid. So you start to see this appearance of what they call moon faces.
To fix it, he says you may need therapy to balance your hormones.
There are some things, Liz, that we are starting to do, and I treated myself with this. So glutathione helps oxidative stress, something called NAD.
NAD is a compound that supports cellular processes in the body that naturally drop with age.
These can be IV infusions. They can be taken sub-Q with an injection. You can even take it in oral form.
You can have cortisol measured, he says, as a saliva test in a lab to see if it's abnormal, if you think it may be contributing to the moon face look. Now, in some cases, Dr. Mendelson says when you can't change the stress, you can change your reaction to it, or you can help yourself out by having a healthy outlet. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
All right, Liz, thank you. And coming up, a deceptive amendment, the ballot measure, and one big blue state getting major pushback over concerns it infringes on basic freedoms. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin in New York with concerns over a proposition on the November ballot.
Most people don't know what it's about.
Jean Carroll with the Unitarian Church on Winton Road said while many laws already protect people, ensuring basic rights are cemented into the state constitution is critical.
Right now, the only rights that are protected in the New York State Constitution are race and religion.
Carroll says the document now does not cover sex, age, disability, gender, or ethnicity. The proposition would add these protections and include pregnancy, gender identity, and gender expression. But Joe Vendura is a voter, like many others, with a lot of questions.
I think if it gets passed, everything that women have worked for to get equal rights is over.
It happened at this Jersey Mike's on Beachmont. A woman walks in about 6:15 p.m., orders a sandwich, and goes to pay with a $100 bill.
And then we use this light reflector thing to make sure it's real. So you put the 100 under there.
The bill passed that test and the yellow pen test that should show brown if the bill is fake. The woman took her sandwich and $88 in change and walked out. The next day, the manager took the deposit to the bank.
They said that, they ran it through the machine and stuff and it indicated that it was counterfeit.
Keith McCarroll, the owner of the Jersey Mike, says the bank kept the 100 and did not credit his account.
It stinks because we operate on a thin margin as well as other restaurants on the strip here. I contacted several friends that I know that own businesses around to let them know, and I also put it on Facebook.
Caught on camera around 3:30 Monday morning, a few guys standing outside the storefront at Nonstop in Fresno next to a parked car. Seconds after, the driver is spotted reversing into the shop, creating an entrance for the thieves. It rams into the storefront several times before a group of 4 dressed in hoodies make their way in and take off with a whole bunch of merchandise.
I mean, pretty much all the big brands, they for sure targeted the big brands for sure.
Jerry Hernandez is one of the store owners and says they are still counting up the losses. Adding to that, the losses of having to close down for several days until they can operate again once repairs are done.
We're gonna have to regroup and just obviously keep going. You can't stop after something like this.
LeBron James already had an NBA season under his belt when his son Bronny was born in October of 2004. Now, almost exactly 20 years later, the two will make history as the first father-son duo to play in the same regular season game. Life cannot get sweeter for LeBron, who's mentored his son, of course, along his journey to the top. And there to watch that special moment unfold will be another father-son duo that's already made history in their own right. Baseball Hall of Fame player Ken Griffey Jr. and his father, who played together back in 1990, will be there to cheer the duo on.
We made history. Now we get to watch history. So that's what's going to be cool about it.
And you can catch it all happen 7 p.m. Pacific time tonight. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. Thanks so much for watching.